Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I am your co-host Gordon Gamble, joined by this beauty of a man here, Key Road, and we're back for another episode of UFC DFS picks, where we're going over what is an absolutely phenomenal card. I'm just kidding. It's an okay. It is a huge drop in UFC 271, but that's okay. We have fights nonetheless, and I'm actually pretty hyped to see how some of these prospects will play out. A lot of decent fights I want to get my hands on, some good DFS targets, and a lot of dogs are barking this week. How you doing, my man?
Good. I mean, this has been an awesome week. As you said, not a good card, big drop off from the last one, but as we say every single time, basically there's a Vegas fight night. These bad cards can be the best cards sometimes. They're exciting, you don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of people that are inconsistent, go big or go home kind of fighters. And it can be exciting. Last week was incredible for us, putting up close to 600 points in DFS lineups on DraftKings, and that's exactly what we are trying to do. I mean, that's a big win. I came fourth in our Ironman this past week
For the first time in Plays and Fades history, you have scored higher than me on DraftKings. And do I get you a medal for it? You get these honorary sunglasses for your win. Okay. But yeah, like you said, it was a great week. Super Bowl was also electric. So we're taking a bit of a step down, and that's okay. I say we don't waste any more time. Let's get into it. Let's talk about these fights, because there are some who we're going to score very, very high. Let's start off with the main event. You keeping those on for the main event? Oh, okay. Main event time, Jamal Hill versus Johnny Walker. It is an absolute banger. Jamal Hill sitting at a price tag of $9K. Johnny Walker sitting at a price tag of $7.2K. I think it's going to be a fun one. How are we targeting this main event?
This is going to be an exciting main event. If nothing else, these guys are entertaining fighters.
Okay.
I mean, how could you go wrong? You got Johnny Walker on one side, big underdog this week, $7,200, but all of his wins are coming in that first round, right? This guy is going big right off the bat, except for his last fight where he decided to not do that, to stay at range. And he ended up losing a 5-round decision. But you know what that means for his mentality? He's probably out here thinking, you know what I should do again? Back to how I was getting my wins in the first round. And you know how he's doing that? By training with Michel Pereira, the ultimate god of doing random stuff that may or may not work for entertainment's sake. On the other side, you got Hill, who might just be licking his lips at the idea of Walker coming out flailing here, because Hill is a fantastic counter striker, and there's a reason he's up here at $9,000. We think he can definitely get this win if he plays it smart against Walker, and if Walker reverts to his Michel Pereira ways of doing weird stuff. So definitely we favor Hill in this matchup. We think he's a pretty decent play here. If you're gonna go crazy, I mean, Walker does have those first round finishes. You could get one of those if you're really feeling at 7,200, but we are on Hill's side. Very much so in this fight.
Jamal Hill has insane power, great boxing chops, and right there, displayed that against Jimmy Crute. Now, his only loss came to Paul Craig, snapped his arm in an armbar. Walker's not doing that. This is Jamal Hill and Jamal Hill all day. I think he scores very, very well. All right, moving right along, looking to find some more violence on the card. A fight I really want to target this week is going to be Jim Miller versus Nicholas Mata. And if you guys don't know Jim Miller by now, who are you? This guy, he's going for the most fights in UFC history on Saturday, has fought everybody. Absolute killer, and he goes for absolute wars. Check out these pictures. Absolute killer on the ground, on the feet. Insane power. The good thing about him, too, is every time he's won in the past 5 years, he's scored above 100 points. He's killer to be killed, and I love that. He's facing a guy, Nicholas Mata, who does have insane power in his hands, but is relatively untested, especially to the likes of Jim Miller. I think this finishes one way or the other. You cannot discredit Jim Miller's skills on the mat, and has showed a knockout last time out in the feet, so this is one where I think Jim Miller might be able to display a bet lesson and score very well. And if he's getting a bit too old for the division, Mata does have power. That should finish. I want either sides of this fight. Moving right along, one last fight we want to target as a whole. We're looking at this Razak Alison versus Buckley fight. What side are we on for this one?
Yeah, I mean, as we said at the beginning of this video, this is another card with these big
It's the glasses.
This is another card with an elite number of go big or go home fighters, and that is exactly the case for this Buckley fight. Buckley, 5 fights in the UFC, every single one has not gone the distance, right? He's been knocked out a couple of times, and he's got a few knockouts, right? He's kind of
got one big knockout.
Yeah, and we all know what he's famous for. He's famous for the spinning back kick, elite play. But he's still a good fighter, and he is the favorite here. He's facing a guy in Razak Alison who is another guy who has only 11 professional wins, but every single one of them is a first round KO. But that's some crazy power, right? And we know that Buckley's been finished, which means in terms of GPP, we love this fight. We definitely think you should be taking one of these guys. $7,900 is great value for a guy who has as many first round knockout wins as Alison does, and who's facing a guy in Buckley who's been knocked out a couple of times in the UFC. That's fantastic value. At the same time, if Alison doesn't get that early win, Buckley could definitely win this fight too and put up a decent score. So we like both of these guys. We really like Alison though in your GPP lineups this week.
Shout out to my guy, the West Belfort, on Twitter, who mentioned that Buckley doesn't defend those head kicks a lot, and Alison's last win was a head kick win. That is definitely a possibility. The one thing I'm going to give Buckley has been training with the Detroit survival training, so he'll be okay. He's learned some things.
If Razak Alison whips out a gun, I mean, it's over.
Anyways, it's going to be a fun one. I'm targeting both sides. Like you said, Alison definitely has some great GPP upside. All right, let's move right along. Let's talk about an underdog, and this is an underdog with a lot of upside. Let's talk about Jesse Strader, 7.1K. This fight against Chad Angeliker, it's going to be a messy one. Our boy Angeliker is a Canadian, but at that, he doesn't have that same UFC level or expertise to be such a big favorite. I think this fight could be a lot closer lined. Both these guys, not that great if I'm completely honest, and that's what makes a good DraftKings target is you have two guys with a lot of upside, a lot of potential. This is going to be really close. I think that there's definitely a lot of value on Strader.
Moving on to one of the big favorites on this card that we like, right there at the top of the price range, we got Jonathan Pierce, up there at $9,300, which is a huge salary, obviously, but we think he gets it done this week. He's fighting a guy in Rodriguez who is an undefeated fighter in his professional career, but has faced pretty low-level competition. And Jonathan Pierce in his past two fights has put up 123 points and 134 points. Those are huge scores, and he did that getting 6 takedowns in the last fight, 5 takedowns in the fight before that. We think that he pushes the pace in this fight. He gets Rodriguez on his back foot, and he's shooting for those takedowns this whole time. His last fight, he won by submission, and if he gets those takedowns, that's definitely a threat for him to do against Rodriguez, who's not necessarily the best fighter on the ground. Even though he's up there at $9,300, he's one of the favorites on this card that we really like. Great cash play.
Yeah, he's facing Guy Rodriguez making his UFC debut, and it just seems like a step down for Pierce. He was able to absolutely dominate a guy, Omar Morales, and he would be the type of guy who people thought to punish Pierce for his defensive liabilities. I think this is Pierce all day, pushing that forward pressure, tiring out Rodriguez, and getting a finish down the stretch. Speaking of the level of competition, we got our boy Parker Porter. We have our guy, Parker Porter, coming in here against a guy in Alain Baudot who is not good at all. And whereas Parker Porter, maybe not the most physically gifted, he does have some decent skills and has some decent wins in the UFC. This is one where there's a gap. There's levels in this. And we have some very sharp guys calling Baudot to get finished here, and I completely agree. Baudot has had 2 fights in the UFC and has been absolutely starched with both of them. Parker Porter is durable enough to survive that early onslaught and finish him down the stretch. We think he scores very, very well. 8.9K, very good option up there as well. Finally, let's talk about this co-main event. Kyle Dawkis, Jamie Pickett. Who do we have in this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is another exciting fight, co-main event this weekend. Not the greatest co-main event in the world, but Kyle Dawkis here is quite a good UFC fighter. And in this fight, he's going up against Pickett, who maybe isn't as good of a UFC fighter in this spot here. Dawkis definitely has the skills to pay the bills, as you would put it, Gordo. And I mean, that last fight out, beat Holland in the first round, and then no contest because of that headbutt, but still, very formidable performance. The only concern we have with Dawkis here in this fight, because we definitely do think that he is a better fighter with a very good chance at winning this fight, is him gassing out like he did against Phil Hawes. But we don't necessarily expect that to be the case against a guy in Pickett who just isn't at the same level as Dawkis is. So he is up there at $8,800, but we expect him to win this fight pretty handily and put up a good score for us.
All right, that's going to do it for our core plays this week. Let's run through a few more names here. Mario Bartista against Printisto has that advantage on the feet and maybe a bit on the ground as well. But I think it stays on the feet. He has the striking chops to win this fight, and I think he does pretty handily. 9.2K, pretty decent option up top as well. Chaz Skelly, he's a question mark. He's a GPP. I think he goes out there, and I think he wins this fight. The problem, he's got a 2-year layoff. He's a bit older. So where Whereas he does have the stylistic advantage, it's tough to bet on a guy we haven't seen in that long. So I do like him to win here. It's a tough one. And last but not least, Onama Benitez. I'm on the Benitez side, but I do get why everyone's on Onama. A lot of recency bias though, so I would be careful. I think it's going to be really, really close. And if you need another dog, Gabriel Benitez at 7.8K, that's a pretty good shot there as well. That's going to do it for us here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, checking out our plays. If you guys want to know more, I'm doing a live stream Fridays, as always, with Liam and maybe a new guest this week. Keep an eye out for that. Ooh. And we appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure to leave a like on the video. Check us out on Twitter @GamblesGordo, @PlaysFades, and let's make some money. I can't believe you wore those for that whole thing.